Thank you. Stop. Standing ovation, and I haven't even started yet. Okay, and now for something totally different. Nuclear submarines. This is Helmand Province in Afghanistan. And we have teams over there that are comprised of Americans, USAID, some State Department people, local, and they collaborate with the locals. We have the tribal chief over here, some Afghan national government, and we have a smattering of US military to provide some security and then to run these things. So the officer over here is Caleb Kerr. He's a naval officer, and he's been handpicked by the US military to go run one of these teams. Caleb Kerr is a submarine officer. Now you need to understand, submariners are the people who are the introverts and the geeks in high school who went into the military. They go into submarines, because you can basically hide from people. So here's the story. Why is a submarine officer running this provincial reconstruction team in the hills of Afghanistan? And that's kind of the story I'm going to tell today. Here's what happened to Caleb. One day, the tribal chief, in the middle of the night, they bang on the compound door, and they're bringing in a pregnant lady with a complication for her pregnancy. The complication is she has an axe embedded in her skull that was put there by the tribe across the other side of the valley, because they've been having this feud for who knows how many generations. And when she gets attacked, they bring her to the Americans because, hey, it's America. Americans, they can save her. And they do. And about 6 weeks later, she delivers a healthy baby. It's a great story. And then Caleb goes to talk to the tribal elder, and he says, look, I understand what's supposed to happen. Her brothers are supposed to go across the other side of the valley and axe someone on the other tribe. But she lived, and she has a healthy baby, and we can celebrate that, and maybe we can stop the cycle of violence. And because they had a relationship, because they had built a community, the tribal chief agreed to that and convinced the family not to do that. And so a feud that had been going on for who knows how many generations ended right then. Caleb served with me, wind the clock 5 years earlier. He had served with me on board the nuclear submarine USS Santa Fe. And I believe in some small way, because on the Santa Fe, we thought about leadership as community and community as leadership. And our objective was to make people feel good about coming to work and to cleanse the toxins and the stresses and the fear that normally happens with work, and to make better humans. That he was able, in this environment, to be successful and stop this violence. Caleb then went on. He was selected to be the captain of his own submarine, and he was one of the 10 officers that served with me who went on to become captains of their own submarines. There were only 14 officers on a submarine. And this means, like in your little group, let's say you had a company of 14 people, 10 of them go off to found their own companies and become CEOs. It's a highly disproportionate number. And this is part of the larger community on the submarine. All my sailors. And you may think, oh, a nuclear submarine, they're highly trained, highly technical people. And to a degree they were. But the only people in this whole picture with college degrees is this group. The average age of the whole submarine is 26 years old. The oldest guy in the submarine was me. I was 40. So it's this young, energetic group of people who want to make the world a better place. Unfortunately, this is not the way most workplaces feel when we go there. They feel like this, because this is the legacy that we've inherited from the Industrial Revolution. We want to make things, we want to make them all the same, and so people sit in rows, and we say, oh, do I care what you're thinking? Do I care what this lady's thinking? No. Just as long as her hands are moving, I'm happy. And then we make schools to support this, and the schools look like this. Or, maybe like this. And then we get to leadership. Here's my 1981 Naval Academy leadership textbook. And it says, leadership can be defined as directing the thoughts, plans, and actions of others so as to obtain and command their obedience, their confidence, their respect, and their loyal cooperation. Simply stated, leadership is the art of accomplishing the Navy's mission through people. Now, hopefully we're going to have a little bit of fun here. Hopefully you brought your phones, because I'm going to ask some questions, and you're going to get a chance to text your answers in to the slide here. And the first question is, how would it feel to work in this environment? So what I want you to do is pair up, talk about it for a few seconds, and then go to this website and text up your answer. So go ahead and talk. We need the gods of Wi-Fi to smile. Oh, here we go. Yes. Okay, pair up, 30 seconds. Talk with your neighbor, text in your answer. Here's the website. Here's the question. Yes. Okay, good. This is very good. Oh, it all got really small for some reason. Right, I think this is right. This is how it feels. How do I know? Because I worked in that environment. It feels good for the leader. I walk around giving orders all day long. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, right? People are running around. An extension of my will. But it's terrible for the people. I mean, can we even do that? Can we even direct the thoughts, right? Can you do that? What do you think? Yeah, okay, all the married people answered the question. You can't. And yet, that was what we thought we were supposed to do. That's what was in my head. So for 15 years, that's the leader I was. And I was darn good at it. My dream was to be the captain of a nuclear-powered submarine. And sure enough, after 17 years in the Navy, there's a message that comes out and says, these are the captains for the next year. My name was on the list. Next to my name was the name of this submarine, the USS Olympia. Wonderful, technologically advanced warship. One nuclear reactor can stay submerged for 16 years. It makes its own oxygen, makes its own water. We have to come to the surface every 90 days just to get food. Has a crew of 135 sailors. We had all men. We now have women, which is, of course, an big evolutionary step forward, in my opinion. So for a year, the Navy took me out of school, and for 12 months, all I did was study this particular ship. I memorized the drawings of all the piping systems, the internals of the pumps, all the ratings of all the equipment, the electrical systems, where the breakers were, all the problems the ship had. I read the dossiers of all the people. I knew where they went to school, how many kids, where they married, how many kids they had. I knew everything. I was the smartest person on the planet for this submarine. I flew to Hawaii, and I was getting ready to take command. And then the plan changed. Next to the USS Olympia out there in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, there was another submarine, the USS Santa Fe. The Santa Fe was the Enron of submarines. The Santa Fe was the submarine that we laughed at, and we giggled at, and we snickered at during that year of training, because the Santa Fe just went from one bumbling thing to the next. Now, it wasn't like we melting down the reactor, but they would get to sea, and they'd have to come into port because something would break, and they had the lowest retention in the fleet. They only re-enlisted 3 sailors, 35 had the opportunity to re-enlist. Only 3 decided, oh, I love the Navy. I want to sign up. I put her at the bottom of the fleet. Her inspection scores were at the bottom of the fleet. And I felt, it was kind of safe to laugh at them because I wasn't going to the Santa Fe. I was like, oh, those poor bastards on the Santa Fe. But the captain on the Santa Fe quit unexpectedly a year early, and the Navy said, Marquet, you're going to the Santa Fe. And I became the poor bastard going to the Santa Fe. And I literally thought my life was over. It wasn't the poor retention. It wasn't the poor performance. It was the fact that the Santa Fe is a different kind of submarine than the Olympia. The Santa Fe doesn't have sailplanes. The Santa Fe has bow planes. The Santa Fe has 12 Tomahawk missile tubes up here in the bow. The Olympia doesn't have. The Santa Fe has a different reactor. The Santa Fe is one of the newest ships in the fleet. Every piece of gear on the Santa Fe was different. So all that knowledge that I had, that was scary. Because in the Navy, the captain's the guy giving all the orders. Never mind. I'll get dressed up in my white uniform, take command. I'm ready to go. I take you down into the sonar room on board the Santa Fe. Now, first of all, cast out everything you've seen in the movies about submarines. We don't do any kind of ping, 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 ping. All we do is listen. We're really good listeners. And we convert the sound in the ocean to these lines, squiggly green lines is the technical term, and analyze them. And by listening to the line and pushing it through some analysis, we can say, oh, this sounds like a cruise ship. This might be an oil well. This sounds like a school of fish. And, ooh, this could be an enemy submarine. And it's kind of important to figure out which one is which. And these are the buttons, right? Now, on the Olympia, we got lots of buttons. On the Olympia, I could have reached over the shoulder of the sailor and say, oh, push this button. I knew every button on the ship. All I'd done for 12 months was study the ship. But on the Santa Fe, it was Greek to me. But I had this bad habit of still asking the sailor to say, hey, tell me about your equipment. Well, Captain, this does this, and this does this. And, of course, there was some button that I would say, what about this button? And the poor sailor, I don't know, Captain. And they would cringe because they expected the hammer to come down. Well, I'll tell you, and you really should know. Oh, yes, Captain, I'm screwed up here. That was leadership. And on the Santa Fe, I'm sitting there going, well, what do I do? Because I don't really know the answer either. I could pretend like I know the answer. But for some reason, I didn't do that. I just said, yeah, I don't know either. You're the captain. Well, let's press it and see what happens. Crap, we attacked a Carnival cruise ship. No, that didn't happen. It was so scary revealing that the person, the captain who was supposed to know everything and give all the orders, didn't know all the answers. But I think now that for leaders to say, I don't know, it's very powerful because it makes it safe for other people to say, I don't know. People can stop guessing, especially if you're in a technical environment. You don't need to guess. You just say, I don't know. We'll go find out. And when you have meetings, if people are worried about you saying, I don't know, they're not going to ask you hard questions because that might be embarrassing. And I went to a lot of meetings at the Pentagon where there was sort of theater of the absurd. We couldn't ask hard questions because we were afraid we would reveal that the admiral's really an idiot, and no one could do that, so it was frowned upon. It was a big waste of time. Well, never mind. Here's what happens. This is what happens next. Now remember, I just took over the worst performing submarine in the fleet. So my idea is we're going to drill hard, train hard, and put pressure on my team. One of the things we like to do is this exercise where we shut down the reactor. We pretend there's a problem with the reactor. Now, when you got a nuclear reactor, you got a lot of power. And so this is the signal. This is the knob we use in the control room. So we say, ahead flank, and the helmsman says, head flank aye, ching, and it rings it down here, and it sends a signal to the engine room, and the throttleman with the wheel spins it open, and these valves open, and the steam from the reactor goes in these main turbines, which are like 2 city buses next to each other. And they spin up, and they drive this 30-foot propeller, and the submarine surges through the ocean. And it's awesome. It's awesome. It truly is. But when you shut down the reactor, what you have is basically the equivalent of a blender motor driving the submarine, because you don't have all the steam and the power and the surging and all that. What you have is this little electric motor. And what you're trying to do is fix the problem with the reactor and get it started back up before the battery drains down. So I'm standing in the control room. We're running this. This is the very first day at sea with me as the captain of my new nuclear-powered submarine. And we're running this exercise. Very first drill we ever run. We're sitting there at a head 1/3. We're just going very slowly on this electric motor. And I start thinking, you know, if we speed up on the electric motor, it's going to draw more current, it's going to drain the battery faster, and it's going to make this race tighter. It's going to put some pressure on my team. So I look over to the navigator, the officer of the deck, the one who's going to give this order. Now, he's been on board 2 years. Me 2 weeks, him 2 years. I say, hey, Nav, let's go ahead 2/3. Let's speed up. And he orders it, helm ahead 2/3. Silence. The poor kid sitting at this thing, I'm looking at the back of his head, and he's kind of going like this. I couldn't see his face, but I imagine. I say, hey, helm, what's going on? Captain, on this submarine, there is no 2/3. Only 1/3 for the electric motor. And what had happened was, when the Navy went to the newest submarine, they simplified things. You guys don't care. Anyway, it didn't have a 2/3, right? All the other submarines had it. And, well, that was embarrassing, for one thing. I said, hey, Nav, did you know about this 2/3 deal? Yes, sir, I did. So riddle me this. Why did you order it? What did he say? You told me to. We train people to do what they're told. You really good at doing what you're told? What do we do with you? We promote you. We make you the captain of a nuclear submarine. And I was good at doing what I was told and telling people what to do. This stopped me cold in my tracks, and I realized we were on the path to death. Because if I gave a good order, my crew would follow it, and there'd be life and happiness. And if I gave a bad order, my crew was still going to follow it, and there'd be death and unhappiness. And that's a big motivator. For me, anyway. So I realized the problem wasn't that I made a mistake in the order. The problem was that I was the one giving orders. The problem wasn't that I gave a bad order. The problem was I was the one giving orders. And this is a revolutionary concept. Because in general, we think, oh, the leader, the boss is the order giver. And if they make a mistake, oh, they just need to be smarter. They need to give better orders. Like the captain on the Costa Concordia, the Italian cruise ship. You guys remember this, where they ran aground. The captain was giving the orders. He was a great villain. He fell into the very first lifeboat. Could happen. And the press lit up on the fact that he gave a bad order. That totally missed the point. The question was, why was the captain the one giving the orders? My initial instinct was say, well, I need my team to be more empowered, more proactive, take more initiative. But remember, these guys have been beaten down because they've been making all these mistakes. And when they came to work, all they cared about was not screwing up. What's the best way not to screw up? Don't do anything, right? And for God's sakes, don't make any decisions. So it pushed the whole organization into this passive mode. So I realized I needed to change. It needed to be me. And the one thing I could do was say, I'm not going to tell you, I'm going to stop giving orders. I'm not going to tell you guys what to do anymore. So I want you to picture a submarine or a company or a cruise ship where the top person doesn't give any orders. This is the key to unlocking greatness, I now think, in humans. We think bad leaders give bad orders, good leaders give good orders, but great leaders actually don't give any orders at all. They don't have to, because they've got a team, they structured their team, and they've got a team where people are taking action without having to be told. And this is the greatness, this is where greatness in human beings comes from. There is no Medal of Honor citation that starts with, after he or she was ordered, ... private first class, blank, went out and... No. Greatness comes from people making a decision to do something great. So the degree to which you tell people what to do, you're suppressing any opportunity for greatness. We were in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, 500 feet, reactor shut down. I don't have time for speeches and posters and newsletters and emails. I just said, say this, say I intend to. Don't say request permission, don't say what do you want me to do, just say I intend to. I intend to submerge a ship, I intend to start at the reactor, I intend to load a torpedo. And it was awesome because then the guys below them would say, I intend to the officers, and the enlisted guys would say, I intend to the chiefs. And so what happens is now everyone's thinking. We went from one thinker, one leader, one boss, and 134 doers to 135 active, thinking, passionate, creative people. 12 months later, the Navy came down and inspected our submarine. This is a at-sea inspection, shooting torpedoes, firing missiles, driving the ship, 4 days. Lots of things happening. The crew of the USS Santa Fe received the highest score that the Navy had records for. Thank you. Thanks. These guys, who were the worst before, why? Everyone's like, oh, that Marquet fellow. The people on the outside didn't understand what was happening. They go, oh, that Marquet fellow must be really clever. He must be just giving a lot of good orders. No, I stopped giving. I was out of the order giving business. I'm going to give you some reframes for leadership. Now, here's what I think. As David said, community doesn't start at the boundary of the organization and work out. Community starts with the CEO. The most important community in your organization is the organization. And if it doesn't feel like a community, and in fact a very strong community right there, there's nothing you can do to create a sense of community out here. It has to start here. So when I think of community managers, I think of culture warriors, I think of leaders. I think these are the people with the keys to the culture of the organization, which is the most important thing. I was working with McDonald's, a big fast food company. Wendy's. Chipotle. No, not Chipotle. Anyway. A big franchise owner, he calls me up, he says, hey, my people aren't treating our customers with empathy. Can you help me get my team to treat our customers with empathy? All right, I'll come see he was in Vancouver, but it was the summertime, so I said I would go up there. So I go up to Vancouver, and I meet up, and I'm going to go out to one of your stores. I go out there. I'm sitting in the back. What's happening in the back, right? The shift manager is like, the fries were done. Now go out and sell some hamburgers. Like, F you. You want shakes with that? So I went back to the headquarters, and I said, hey, I think I know what's going on here. The problem is your shift managers aren't treating your people with empathy. So, of course, they're not going to treat the customers with empathy. It starts inside. And then I started drawing the string back, right? So why are the shift managers not treating their people with empathy? Because the district people probably aren't treating them with empathy. Why is that? Right? And all the way back to him, right? How are you treating? So anyway, he didn't call me back. We had some talk about volunteers earlier today. When it comes to the most important thing that people can do at work, passion, creativity, energy, thinking, everybody's a volunteer. Some people say, oh, it's easy for you in the military. You just order people. I order you to have enthusiasm and be passionate. Does that work? No, of course not. We get to blow stuff up sometimes. So when we shoot a torpedo, first of all, the torpedo never hits the ship. That's another thing that doesn't happen. The torpedo has a long wire, and it's telling us back on the ship what we're seeing, and I get to talk to the torpedo and steer it. Then it goes under and blows up, and this creates damage, but we blow a hole in the ocean that the ship falls into and breaks in half. And then in the military, we like to have, we have to make up new words for everything. So this is a non-combat effective vessel. And it's going to sink in about 10 minutes. So these torpedoes are big deals. You don't want to mess around with them. Here we are. This is the Santa Fe. We're in Sasebo, Japan. We're loading a torpedo. And this is kind of a complex operation. We have to take a crane and put it in this cradle, and we have hydraulics and cables, and we raise it up and bring it down inside the submarine. It takes about 40 people to do it. So before we would do something like this, we were very religious about doing a brief. Well, what's that? We all get together. Guys, we're going to load a torpedo. So we get the book of loading torpedoes. Upon the signal of the crane operator, thou shalt take a snug turn on the forward-line capstan, and then you should da-da-da-da-da. Anyway, it was horrible. 40 minutes went by. Any questions? No. Let's get on with it. What is this about? It's about doing. It's not about thinking. And I realize we have all these rituals in work, the way we sit in meetings, the way we talk to each other, things that we thought were good. You guys have to-do lists? Anyone have a to-do list? Right? It's about doing, right? It's not about thinking. So this idea that we're going to think really replaced doing. So we found these rituals all over the ship, and we canceled them. And of course, I'm a kind of a snarky guy, so I had some fun because the inspectors loved to come to the Santa Fe because they were sure to find a lot of problems, right? Which of course is the most joyous thing for an inspector. And they would come and say, these are these crusty old guys, like, Captain, we're here to monitor Santa Fe loading torpedoes. Sounds like Sean Connery a little bit, doesn't it? Okay, great. I want to see everything, including the brief. Yeah, just, hey, about that, we're not going to do a brief. A brief's technically not required. It was best practice, but only loading the torpedo properly was required. It's true. Actually, what we did is we replaced the brief with a certification where we would ask the sailors, what's your job? What are you thinking about? What decisions might you make? What are you worried about? How could this go wrong? And only when the person in charge was satisfied that we were ready to move forward would they come to me and say, Captain, we've conducted the certification. I intend to commence torpedo loading. And every once in a while, they would come to me and say, Captain, I've conducted the certification. We are not ready. And that was embarrassing because I would have to send a message to, in this case, the captain of the tender who had his ship here ready to load. And I said, well, we're not ready. We got to delay for 3 hours. We got to study more or get the gear right or whatever it is. Is that bad? Maybe. Is it as bad as dropping a torpedo or killing something? No. And if you never say we're not ready, then you're not making a decision. You're just doing the next thing. Hospitals are in this thing. Has anyone ever gone to a hospital for a scheduled operation? You guys are probably all too young for this, but when you get older, you're going to go in. And had the surgeon come out and say, I'm glad you're here on time. We're not ready. Has that ever happened to anybody? Really? They're not ready because they're late, but are they not ready because he's tested his team and he feels his team isn't ready to go? Yeah, I don't know. Some people say yes. This will be the first time that anyone has ever said it, which is good because most times if they're not saying yes, they're just bringing the next person, bringing the next person, bringing the next person. Should they be ready? Yes. But if they're not, you want them to say we're not. The point of this is you probably have a lot of rituals which are focused on doing, and focused on compliance, which you probably don't even know you have. And so I encourage you to look carefully at all these things and blow them up and give power to the people and allow them to think. Now, giving people power isn't a complete program. We're going to start with giving people control, but control without these two pillars is chaos. That's bad on a nuclear submarine. People need to know what they're doing. So for me, this is things like, the laws of physics, starting up the reactor. But people also need to know what we're here for. And this is, I think, where you guys can really be helpful. Because if I say, you get to make a decision now, do we ship the product or not? Do we like, is Pornhub okay to have on our website or not? They kind of need to know what you're about. And then I think the next layer down is this idea of defined roles, languages, and process. And some people are like, oh, not processes, I hate it. I'm like the door's opening and people are leaving right now. But when you don't have a common language, if you can't hold something up and say, what is this? If everyone doesn't call it the same thing, then that's where you start with the lack of clarity. So we spent a lot of time on the submarine, even though we had 100 years of submarining tradition, deciding what to call things and what words we were going to use and what they meant. And then we would build these things up from here. Number 2, leaders push authority to information. The old way was to push information to authority. So on the submarine, if someone wanted to go on vacation because Navy Reg said so, they had to put in a form that went up to the second in command of the submarine. That meant if you were this sailor here, your sheet had to be signed by 6 people. The division chief, senior chief Warshak, the department chief, chief of the boat, division officer, department head, and then the executive officer. Our form, Navy HR gave us a form. We only had 5 slots on it. It was actually kind of crazy. And so what do we call this? Is pushing information to authority. Now that guy sitting right behind the sailor, senior chief Warshak, knows everything. Is he a good kid? What's the submarine doing that week? Is his mom sick? He needs to go back to Texas and visit. Whatever. But he doesn't have the authority to make the decision. And so we say, oh, well, we create balanced scorecard, or we buy, some ERP system to do this. This is the 20th century solution. The 21st century solution is to push the authority for making decisions out to the people with the information. And this is what you guys do as community managers. And oh, by the way, that means encouraging this person to talk to this person, and this person to this person, and this person, and this person to this person? Yes, and this person back to this person. Oh, but that makes people nervous, right? All these people here are nervous when this happens. But if it's information, that's fine. It should be fine. Kind of a good news story. The submarine started doing much better. I told you about the inspection. The very next year, we had 35 sailors, again, eligible to re-enlist. Every single one signed up to stay in the Navy. Why? Because their lives were easier? Because we gave more time off? No. Because they could connect what they were doing to something that mattered. Because we gave them the authority to make decisions. We say people don't want easy, they want agency. They want to matter. Because they felt they were listened to. Because they felt like they didn't have toxins build up at work, that they would go home and then take out on their spouse or their dog or their kids. And so Stephen Covey, who I was a huge fan of, I would get a phone call one day, says, Stephen Covey would like to ride your submarine. Stephen Covey, that's amazing. And so he came out and had this magical day, and dolphins were jumping, and it was like a Disney movie. It was awesome. Little mermaids. Seriously. Dr. Covey's really quiet. He spends a couple hours, he's watching the certifications, the no briefing, he's watching the I intend to. And I'm a little bit worried because this is a big, huge thing for me. And he finally comes up to me and says, hey, this is the most empowering workplace I've ever seen. I said, oh, thank you very much. Just by the way, we don't use the word empowering here, but that's okay for you. And then he said, and I haven't seen you give any orders. I said, yeah, I try to get out of the order giving business. And then he said, I know what's going on here. And I said, okay, well, do tell. Because for me, it felt very confusing. It just felt like I had to stop giving orders, and everything that followed was just sort of this mesh of experimentation. And we came up with this. People used to come up and say, tell me what to do. And I refused to tell them what to do. First of all, you have to hear, tell me what to do. You don't tell them what to do. You say, well, what do you think? What would you do if you were me? One of my favorite tricks was I would get up out of my captain's chair. Oh, the captain's chair. That's a big deal on a submarine. I would get out of my captain's chair, and I would say, hey, have a seat. You weren't supposed to sit. It was like, your grandfather's lazy boy. Don't sit in that chair. And then I would say, okay, yeah, what was that problem you were telling me about? And the words that came out of their mouth were totally different. Before they were talking about their division, their department, whatever. Now it's like, well, that's not really the problem. And they would sort of see things from a different perspective. It was amazing. And then say, okay, what do you recommend? And what do you intend to do, which I love. And maybe even just tell me what you did. You do it. You decide, then tell me. And poor Dr. Covey puts his head down and starts rubbing his forehead. I think poor Dr. Covey is seasick. I said, Dr. Covey, are you okay, sir? Should I get the core mended? No, I'm fine. I'm a 7 guy. We got to have 7. So he made up. This, to me, was the greatest leadership hack ever because, empowerment is fuzzy. But it's discrete, it's measurable. I could hear where people were and just say, oh, hey, why don't you say this? And I kind of think this might be interesting to overlay your community commitment curve. Close in, high commitment, they're up there just doing stuff. As you move away from the center and you get lower and lower commitment, maybe the magnitude of what they're doing goes down, but also their level of authority, their level, the level of engagement goes up as we go up. Engagement, thinking, passion, and creativity, ownership go up as we go up the ladder. All right, now here's the next question, another poll. Question is, you got someone down here to tell me what to do, and you're doing all these strategies, you're putting them in the captain's chair, and they just seem stuck at tell me what to do. What is it that keeps people at tell me what to do? Text it on in. Does anyone have an extra water? Give it a heave. Thanks. Politics. The question, in one word, what would keep someone from moving up the ladder? What we're building here is called a word cloud, which I'm super in love with. And the way it works is the more people type in the same word, that word gets bigger relative to the other words. Yeah, and fear conquers all. I think this is very consistent. I've done this almost 100 times on 4 different continents, and so far every time fear has been the number one thing. So I want you to put your heads together with your partner again. I'm going to give you 60 seconds this time, and I want you to discuss, okay, if fear is the thing that's keeping people that tell me what to do, that's keeping people from that sense of creativity, that sense of ownership, what does it mean to us as leaders in terms of how we interact with people? What does this mean to us? Okay, take 60 seconds and talk about it. Who's got something? Who wants to share something? Sorry, it's a little hard for me to see. Anyone? Yes.
Information, so like they need context. Like if I make a mistake, what's the impact?
Right.
How careful should I be, or is it okay to like?
So they need more help. They need more context about the decisions they're making. How much risk can I take? Is this? We have a concept called above and below the waterline. Below the waterline sinks the ship. Above the waterline Doesn't. So we say, hey, it's above the waterline. Have a ball. Do an experiment. If it's below the waterline, yeah, let's think about it. Let's send it over to the scientists, make sure we're okay. Okay? Good. What else? Trust. Trust is very important. I have, here's my take on trust, which is different than most, I think. Most people think trust equals trust plus competence. All right, after this, I'm going to go to LaGuardia. You're driving me to, what's the problem? You're driving me to LaGuardia, you take me down into Long Island, right? Do I trust you? If I think you're getting me to LaGuardia, then I trust you. You know, why did you go to Long Island? It's just a matter of reading the map. It's a competence issue. And when we break trust and competence apart, it's very useful because trust is an emotional thing. You don't trust me. But if I break it apart, say, yeah, I trust you, but I'm not sure we should be going to Long Island. We can have a conversation about that devoid of emotion, which is what we wanted. So trust is very important. But remember, trust is like, are we in it together? When you tell me we should turn left, do you mean we should turn left? That's different than, should we actually turn left? What else? Respect. Yeah, we should respect each other, right? Because respect is the antidote to fear. What else?
Removing unreasonable consequences.
Yeah, removing unreasonable consequences, right. Like we talk about fire drills. Most of the time it's not really a fire, right? It's just, what else? Puppies is gaining on us. How about this? We as leaders need to make people feel safe. Okay? We don't add stress. I used to think the leaders added stress. They made it hard, right? Because if we're gonna work really hard. We're gonna make it hard for my team, and I'm gonna test my team by fire, and they're gonna come out stronger on the other side. But when it comes to thinking, stress makes it harder to think, which is what we're trying to say. Which is really what we're trying to do now. Think, not do. This is the National Spelling Bee Contest, and they did a study. They said, oh, if the person before you gets the answer correctly, does that improve or reduce the odds that you're going to get it right? What do you guys think? It actually makes it go down because it puts more pressure on you, puts more stress on you, and it causes your prefrontal cortex to go dark. You're not thinking as well, literally. And it causes you to sort of recede back to your reptile brain where all you want to do is fight, flight, or fear. You know, it makes you afraid, and it makes it harder to think.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's gonna stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever gonna stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if
Are
we
you
got
sure?
that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Come on. If you would just.
Don't.
Try to see things my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can go on?
All right, guys, heads up on that one. All right, last reframe. Leaders fix the environment, not people. Too often we say, oh, you weren't very empathetic, you weren't generous, you weren't a team player. So I'm going to send you to 2-day off-site empathy training, team training, whatever, generosity training. It doesn't work. That's not the way leaders think. Leaders think, what is it about the environment that's not allowing my people or my community to act in this helpful way? Here's the study that really highlights this. This happened back in Princeton, at the Princeton Theological Seminary back in 1973. 2 psychologists went in there, and they asked the seminary students if they wanted to give a talk on the Good Samaritan, and a bunch of them signed up. They came into an office, one at a time, and they received the following set of instructions. You're going to go across campus, and you're going to go give your talk. And then the following part was slightly different. It was either, and you have plenty of time, or it was, if you leave now, you'll be just in time, or it was, you're already late. Now, on the way that they had to walk to where they thought they were giving this talk about the Good Samaritan, there was a man lying on the ground, an actor who was staged. These people had to walk right past this person, some around. Some actually stepped over this person as they were going to give a talk on the Good Samaritan. The question was, there was no talk. The question was, how many people would help this person? Of the people who were told you have plenty of time, 63% helped. Of the people who were told you're just in time, 45% helped. My question to you, what do you think happened to the group that was told you're already late? Did the number go down or go up? All right, let's see what we got. Oh, look at that, it's tied. Okay, someone who said went up. Tell us kind of what you were thinking. You're already late, so might as well help. Okay, good. Anything else? Now, hey, sorry I'm late. Saving a guy's life. My bad. Exactly. That would be an awesome planet to live on. That, unfortunately, or I don't know, that's not what happened. It went down to 10%. Now, when I first read this, I was super bummed out. I was like, oh, human beings are jerky. But, you know, I think what happens is most workplaces feel like we're on this constant rush. We never have time to think. We never have time to help each other. And so we get this behavior where we're all sort of, you know, in our own little worlds, doing our own little things. And you as a leader can create an environment where it feels the deadlines are still real, I got it, but you don't need to add more stress. Where it feels like, yeah, we can take time to help each other out. Then all of a sudden, the same people that you always had are all of a sudden going to start helping. It's like, where did all these helpful people come from? They were there all along. One of the most fun things we did on the Santa Fe was not fighting fires, but after the fire exercise, we say, you know, why did it go not well? And people say, well, they did this, they did that. They, engineering, they, the officers, there was all this they on board. And one day I just got mad and I just beat the table and I said, there's no they on Santa Fe. And it rhymes, so kind of stuck. I said, we just say the word we, and we just started talking about everyone is we. And what happened was 6 months later, we had this amazing culture where it felt like we. But it wasn't because it said, oh, we're a team, please be a team, act like a team. It's because we practiced the word we, and then we felt like a team. But listen, everybody, when I think back about my life and the things that I regret, the only things I regret is when I allowed myself to be treated badly. And for you and for your kids, don't do that. You have more power and more authority than you think you have. You don't need to work in these bad environments. And the more people stand up and say, I'm not tolerating this, the better. That's what you guys need to do. Boom.